You have to be really intentional about putting a team together.
I was in!
Crawled out of the pile and just started screaming.
How good is Joey Bosa?
Herbert, rolling, looking, throwing, end zone, touchdown! It's intercepted. Derwin James. Derwin was there.
You got to be on a mission every day in the NFL. But even more than that, you got to be on a mission together.
This episode is brought to you by Manscaped. And Jake, I know that you have a little bit of the brown stuff in a glass with some ice on it, and you have a shirt on. Mm-hmm. Folks can go to manscaped.com, use the code UNLEASH, save 20%. You guys can get anything that Manscaped has to offer. Again, 20% off and free shipping. Use the code Manscaped. Their products are great. Lawnmower 4.0, they've got it all. Highly recommend for your loved ones or for yourself, for anyone who thinks that they could use some help. Now, Jake, where were we?
Welcome to another episode of Chargers Unleashed. Jake Hefner and Dan Wolkenstein here with you from the LA Football Network. We have, Dan, it's so nice to bring our special guest in today. It's been way too long. We haven't spoken with him since the draft. If you guys have been watching him, I guess we can actually now officially call him a colleague, not just a friend of the show, but we can call him kind of a colleague now.
Sir.
Chargers reporter for Sports Illustrated, co-host of Compass on the Beat, friend of the show, colleague, and of course, lover of corn dogs, Fernando Ramirez joins the show. Fernando, how are you, buddy?
Dude, I'm looking bull BS. I have not been on here for a long time. I wasn't even on here as Chargers Unleashed. It's been a while, so I'm calling BS. I was looking through my phone. There's no way.
Well, I said it was prior to the draft. It's been a minute.
Prior to the draft, prior to like the season ending last year. I don't think I've been on here with Staley being here as the as the head coach. So there you go. I mean, you guys have had a Tranquil on Rashawn Slater, so obviously I'm not as important anymore.
Okay, so maybe to be more specific. Maybe to be more specific, maybe it was if I look back and I remember correctly, it may have been the week after Anthony Lynn got let go. Maybe it has been that.
Yeah, right around there. You lose some weight, Father Pat?
Yes. Yes, I did.
I was wanting to respond the way he responds to Jackie Moon, but you can't. It's a kid show. Kid show.
Kid show. Yes, that's right. Corn dogs, Jackie.
Exactly.
Corn dogs. Fernando, first off, obviously, great having you on the show. From what you and Gilbert have been doing on Compass on the Beat has been nothing short of phenomenal, very entertaining. Again, if you have not watched the show, you need to go and do it. But thus far, we haven't, since, again, as you said it, we haven't talked to you in so long. How's everything been? How's the family doing? How are you, sir?
Family's good. I had a slip and slide incident over the weekend where we were slipping inside and I threw my brother WWE style. I was running on the slip and slide. I slipped, fell, and hit myself. I put it on my Instagram because I had recorded it. I recorded it and I put it on my Instagram. People were like, "Dude, you must be hurting." I'm like, "Yep, hurting, but it's fine. We get up, we get back up again, and we keep on sliding." Did that for about 3 days. My little nephew was like, "Let's go out today. Let's go out and do a slip and slide." I'm like, "Oh my God, this crap's exhausting." I'm like, I had to have burned a couple of calories. Come on, like all this running and sliding. But you mentioned Compas on the Beat. We're having a lot of fun with it. Literally, it's funny because Gilbert's the opposite of me for everything. I'm energy. Gilbert's a little bit more relaxed. I watch movies. Gilbert is barely catching up with Harry Potter 3 and 4. No. I'm like, welcome to the freaking the 21st century. Like, come on, how the hell are you barely watching these? And I think he just watched the 3rd one and he's about to start the 4th one. I'm like, Gilbert, you need to catch up and catch up quick. He's like, I'm watching them at my own pace. I'm like, well, crap, if that's going to happen, you're not going to watch the last one until January or February. And he just started laughing. And, but yeah, no, we bring the fight. Literally, we talk about dumb stuff. We talked about we reviewed A Quiet Place 2 the other day. Recommend it. If nobody's watched it, go out and watch it. It was good. It's my first time back at the theater, which was exciting. I'm going to go back again soon because Fast and Furious 9 comes out. If people haven't heard it on Compas on the Beat, I'm excited about that. My boy John Cena is going to be a heel. I saw that back when he was a doctor of thugonomics in WWE, but I didn't get to see the later version of John Cena as a heel, so I'm excited. I keep on hearing good stuff about it. So I'm hoping I don't get disappointed. I hope it's I think one outlet called it the rebirth of the Fast and Furious franchise. So I got very excited about that. I know it's number 9, but don't look at numbers. Age is just a number. Let's just enjoy for what it is.
They're aging like a fine wine, aren't they?
I've loved it. I love the franchise. They brought on The Rock. The Rock really revitalized the whole franchise. So maybe the addition of John Cena also does that. But yeah, that's just all I've been doing. And then covering Brandon Staley and kind of the new energy that he's brought to this team. It seems different than before. It's not. It just seems like the players are really bought into it. Joey Bosa the other day tells us like, I'm excited to be a Charger, and I'm like, oh, okay. Like when a guy like Joey Bosa is excited about stuff, that means everybody needs to get fired up in the building.
Everybody needs to pay attention.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know if you guys saw the video, but the Chargers released a video where Joey drops back into coverage, and he's covering Austin Eckler, and like obviously Brandon Staley's like hyping him up, and I'm like, did Joey Bosa really knock the ball down? Like they didn't show the rest of the video. They just see like all you see is like Joey covering him, and then all you see is them cut to Brandon Staley, and they're like, "Good job, Joey." So I'm like, "Oh, did Joey knock the ball down?" Like that would be really interesting.
Which is also weird. I don't think we've ever seen him drop back. Not even
in 16 when he was under John Pagano in the 3-4. He rarely, if ever, dropped back. So over under 3 interceptions for Joey Bosa this season. Jake, you taking it?
Ooh.
I think he'll get a couple just because he's gonna surprise the opposing quarterback.
Yeah. You know what? I'll say he gets 2. I mean, a very good line to place. So if that definitely sounds like a Vegas line, and given what you're talking about as far as OTA, that's a fair line. But I'll keep it low, but that still, even getting 2 picks for Joey Bosa is some nice expectations.
Exactly.
Now, Fernando, one of the questions that we have talked about ad nauseum, but we haven't had a chance to talk with you live since it actually happened. You're there at OTAs. You've seen Brandon Staley do his thing, and you've kind of seen the old regime as well. Like, tangibly, tactically, like what do you feel is kind of the biggest difference just with like this new coaching scheme and Brandon Staley?
The energy around the players. They seem really energized by this. I mean, I know you guys have seen what happened with the 49ers with some of the injuries that they've had. Houston didn't even do a mini camp, I believe. I don't think San Francisco did a mini camp either because of all the injuries that's sustained. Corey Linsley said that Brandon Staley asked everybody, what do you guys want? How can we go out there and work, but at the same time but at the same time you guys be safe? So they went with this design of they were only going to be in shorts and jerseys, no pads, no helmets, no nothing. I was there when Melvin Ingram tore his ACL in 2013 during OTAs. I was there when Hunter Henry. Well, I was actually next to MJ Acosta from NFL Network. We're standing there, and Hunter's coming towards us. He makes the grab, falls to the ground, and he looks like he grabs his leg. And I told MJ, MJ tells me, she's like, "Oh crap." I'm like, "What?" She's like, "Dude, that's not good." And I looked at him, and I'm like, "Ooh." And he walks off gingerly, and I'm like, "Ooh." I'm like, that could be it. So I'm no stranger to watching some of these injuries happen. So
Derwin last year.
Derwin was training camp, but yeah, no, definitely agree. So he listened to the players. He took, and that's what I'm excited for, training camp, to see what nuances he brings out. But here it was interesting to watch the way Brandon kind of took command of this. Usually, so the way Chargers Park is, there's 2 fields for guys to practice. Usually everybody's on the same field. Not here. Brandon took, I'm not going to say the third stringers, but it was like a lot of rookies and Easton Stick and some of the other offensive linemen. He put them at a different field and had them practice there. And I'm like, why would they practice? And then we asked Brandon, and Brandon's like, sometimes some guys don't get looks at all during these times. Like sometimes the 4th string running back, and he didn't say string, but he's like, some running backs, some receivers don't get looks at. Here, we send some coaches with them. They get looks while the first team and second team are also getting looks. So everybody's getting looked at without generally saying they're getting looked at. And if that makes any sense. So basically, he was working 2 different fields, and everybody was getting looked at to see who can really. He said That's the way you find the Austin Ecklers. That's how you find some of the Antonio Gates. That's how you find some of these guys that you don't even know who you have in your camp, but end up coming out and they really show off. So I think that's the energy that Brandon Staley's brought to this team. A lot of players are saying they're excited about the energy that he's brought. They're excited about the new culture that he's bringing, and they're excited about the new coaching staff that he's brought in. So I think that's one thing that I really look at with Brandon. I say, wow, he really is accomplishing what he set out to do. Plus, when you have a guy like Jalen Ramsey speak about him and the way he spoke about him, that there's no way you can go wrong with hiring a coach like him.
I still remember the quote that you put out about Brandon Staley saying that about his practice methodology as far as maximizing your time, basically what you can do with all these players, being able to see, getting everybody the maximum amount of time to get the most reps as possible, rather than just spending most of the time having your starters do it. I thought it was a very great quote that you put out, Fernando, just as far as explaining to people and for Staley to do it, talking about just overall player efficiency and growth. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing is that Brandon really, and this is what I'm expecting. I'm expecting one or two guys to really make the roster who are undrafted and really show out. Like it's gonna be two guys. One of the guys that I have is Amen, the guy from Oklahoma State, the linebacker. I asked Darius Swinton about him for special teams, and he said Amen is a guy that really just goes out there and he's a bully. He's like, he knocks guys down. He does a lot of dirty work for us. I was like, okay, that means he's starting to take a look at him as a special teams player. Because that's another thing fans forget. The Chargers need to fix the special teams. That's going to come down to some of these roster bubbles where people are like, is this guy going to make it? Is that guy going to make it? The question is going to be, can he play special teams? That's really going to be what separates some of these guys. Even the 6th, 7th, and 8th, 6th and 7th round draft picks, that's what's going to separate them with some of these other guys, maybe undrafted guys also. If you can play special teams and you can play your position well, you're going to make the 53-man roster. So I really think Brandon's going to take a look at every single I think it's 86 guys right now, or 85. I think they're at 85. And the reason they're at 85 is because after the first preseason game, you have to cut 5 players. So I think the Chargers are just going to want to go with already the 85. Why have to cut down? So I think they're going to stick at 85, but I think Brandon's going to really take a look at every single 80. Oh, I mean, obviously you don't have to take a look at Keenan, Justin, and some of these other Corey Lindsley and all that. But I think he's going to really pay attention to some of these guys that are in the back end of this roster and really see, is there any way these guys can help me? Because like he said, that's the way you find the Austin Ecklers. I mean, hell, a couple of years ago, the Chargers had Wes Welker on there. And it's funny because on this other podcast I do with Lorenzo Neal, he told me, he's like, I could tell Wes could play. He said Drew Brees could tell that Wes could play. A lot of people knew Wes could play, but at the end of the day, it was between him and somebody who would play special teams, and they decided to cut Wes Welker, and that's when he went to Miami. And then he asked me after he got cut in Miami, hey, can you make a call and find a team for me? And I guess Lorenzo called one of his buddies who worked with the Patriots, and the Patriots picked him up, and you saw what happened when he went to the Patriots. So,
of course.
So I mean, that's how you separate those guys. You have to be able to find talent. And that's really what this guy has done. That's why a guy like Nasir Adderley is who we're all looking for. Like when you speak to the media, Nas is a guy that I think could end up turning into a John Johnson III kind of for Brandon Staley in his defense because of his versatility, the way he's able to ball hawk. I think he's a guy that really his stock could go up high if he buys in, which it sounds like he has. Ronaldo Hill, defensive coordinator, said that he loves exactly what Nas is bringing to this secondary. So it's one of those things that gets guys excited. But yeah, no, definitely the players are excited to be there with Brandon, and kind of they love his philosophy. So it seems like all 85 players have really bought into what Brandon is preaching to them.
Let me touch on that a little bit, Fernando, because you led into that. It's definitely something that I wanted to talk about with you. You released a piece earlier this week, 3 defensive players that you thought were going to take the next leap in Brandon Staley and Ronaldo Hill's defense. And you already mentioned one of them in being Nasir Adderley. The other 2 were in Uchenna Nwosu and Kenneth Murray. Elaborate on what your perspective was. Obviously, the article was fantastic on the breakdown, but I just wanted to hear it from you as far as what your perspective was on that.
I just had to write something.
Check.
Nas is one of those guys that the first year he came in injured, and he had said, I was coming in injured from college, and so he kind of got himself right. Last year was just, I'm not trying to speak ill because I like Gus Bradley, but I've heard a lot of negativity when it comes to Kenneth Murray has said some stuff. Drew Tranquil was like, I was covering Tyreek Hill at one point. I'm like, why am I covering Tyreek Hill? So some guys have come out and said that they weren't utilized the best way. Nas kind of said something to that extent. So it's interesting to see if Gus is just one of those guys that's like, here's my system, either you fit in it or you don't. So, and Brandon's more of let's fit our system around the players that we have. So Kenneth Murray said that last year they had him drop back. He's like, that's not my strong suit. That is the strong suit of Drew Tranquil. Not having Drew Tranquil last year hurt, because at one point you had Kenneth Murray and Denzel Perryman, who both are more of attacking the opposing quarterback, going after the running back, not covering a tight end. That's more Drew Tranquil's speed. So Kenneth said that he's going to rush the passer a lot more, and he's going to be able to do some sideline to sideline. To me, that basically means he's going to play with his instincts. Where he feels like he needs to be, that's where he's going to be. So that's what they really need to, that's how you play Kenneth Murray. Kenneth Murray is more about his instincts and where he feels like he should be in the play. That's why that New England game, I feel like he said, F it, went in there and just played at his speed and played whatever he wanted to do. That New England game, yeah, they got blown out 45-0. But even before they were blowing them out, Kenneth was playing really well and Kenneth was making plays. So I feel like that's the kind more of the Kenneth Murray that you're going to see this season. He had 100 tackles, even with that in Gus Bradley's system, he had 100 tackles. Imagine in Brandon Staley's defense, he could jump up and maybe even become a Pro Bowl talent. Because that's what I think he's going to end up being. I think he's going to end up being a Pro Bowl type of linebacker. He has the instincts, he has the play, he has the motivation. And when you jump over at Uchenna Nwosu, it's time for it to click for him. It's been his rookie season. You saw the glimpses, the little glimpses there where maybe he could be a good pass rusher. You saw Lamar Jackson, he knocks it out of his hand, and you really thought, oh, maybe he can go up, but he's been injured. He's had some freak stuff happen to him. I think Brandon's going to put him in the best position to succeed. I think he's going to be a guy to really look for this season, just because he's going to be playing opposite Joey. Joey needs somebody. You can't just have Joey Bosa and say, go get the quarterback. It's not going to work. Last year, you saw it at times. Joey had 3 guys on him at times, and he was still trying to get through. In that Buffalo game, oh, crap. He was getting through 3 defenders. That's what was incredible to me. But Uchenna's going to need to step up. He said he was watching Leonard Floyd film, which I understand, but at the same time, Leonard isn't, like, you guys aren't the same size. Leonard's 6'5", freak athlete. Like, you're more of using your speed to kind of get around the edge, kind of similar to Melvin Ingram, I guess. But Uchenna's another guy that you need to look at. I mean, he could easily get 7 or 8 sacks this season and really impact the defense. But I know the Chargers want to get back to what they did in 2018, which was sack the quarterback, take the ball away, create plays. I think it was 17 where they were making a lot of interceptions and returning them for pick sixes and stuff. But that's what they kind of want to do, a mix of 2017 and 18 where they had one of the top defenses in the NFL, one of the top offenses in the NFL, and then obviously you need to have a top special teams, because that's really what's been their anchor the last few years.
One of the thoughts, we had talked about the draft last time you had on the show, and we had talked about like the importance of them hitting on some of the players this year. You look at last year, we got Kenneth Murray, we got Justin Herbert, and Justin Herbert's the trump card. How would you say this year compared to last year in terms of just, did they do as well? And did they hit on the things that you think that they needed to going into the draft?
Well, they got their left tackle. They got Rashawn Slater. I thought they did. I think Josh Palmer is a guy that not a lot of people are really recognizing, and I feel like he could end up being something special. I know they didn't need a receiver. Well, if you ask me, yes, they did need another receiver. If you have somebody like Gilbert, my co-host at Compas on the Beat, he didn't think so. He said, no, you don't need another receiver. I'm like, I like Jalen, and he thinks I'm a Tyron Johnson and Jalen Guyton hater, but I'm not. The reason why I say I like Josh Palmer, they needed another receiver, is because there was times where Keenan and Mike were both getting double teamed and nobody else was stepping up. There was nobody to make those grabs, nobody to really make those catches and kind of move the chains a little bit. And Jalen Guyton was one of those receivers that would have 2 catches a game, and one of them was a 55-yard touchdown. That's incredible. That's great. But at the same time, you do need a nitty-gritty kind of receiver to do some dirty work besides Keenan and Mike. And I feel like Josh could be that kind of guy. If you put out Keenan Allen in the slot, Jared Cook, Mike Williams, let's just say all 3 of them on that side. Then you have Jalen Guyton and you have Austin Eckler. Dude, everybody's going to be so distracted by Josh Palmer, not Austin Eckler, Josh Palmer. They're going to be so distracted by these guys that Jalen Guyton and Tyron Johnson are going to come open even more than they were this year. Because there were times, like I was there at the Las Vegas game where Jalen Guyton had a step over on, I can't remember who he was, at the end of the game in overtime. He was able to hit Jalen Guyton for that long pass. That stuff is going to open. There you go. Yeah, against the Raiders. That stuff is going to open up. It's going to open up even more if you have a weapon like Josh Palmer there. And Tyron Johnson and Jalen Guyton are more like the 4th and 5th receiver. They're going to get way more looks. They're going to get more open. So in my opinion, I thought the Josh Palmer thing was great. Jaimes, I think the guard, I think he could end up being a starter. I know Oday Abuji is penciled in right now as a starter, but I think I think he's one of those like Pittsburgh Steelers kind of guards that is just gonna he's gonna be not a thug, but like he's gonna be one of those like blue collar guys that's just gonna knock dudes flat on their tails. I really think he's one of those guys that really could end up being a good selection for them. I liked Asante Samuel Jr. I thought that was a really good selection. I couldn't believe that Slater and Samuel fell right into their laps, especially with everything they're trying to do. I just thought they were going to have to come up in the draft. Gilbert and I were actually watching the draft together and the first round. And I thought Dallas or Philly was going to take Rashawn Slater because Philly needs to retool that offensive line. So does Dallas. And Dallas takes Micah Parsons, and I turn to Gilbert and I go, this dude just fell into their lap. And yeah, Rashawn Slater falls into their lap. By the way, his dad is humongous. Oh my God. I was like, who is that guy? That guy's humongous. And then I see it's like Reggie Slater. I'm like, oh yeah, he did play in the NBA. I completely forgot. He was huge. The incredible part about Rashawn Slater, though, is that I think I remember reading this, that he only won 3 games in his high school career or something like that. Like he didn't win a lot of football games, and he was recruited by Northwestern. But I was just like, wow, imagine a kid who only had like 3 or 4 wins in his senior year or junior year. I can't remember which one it was. And he's now on an NFL team and about to start as their left tackle. Like that's an incredible story in and of itself. But when you ask me, did I feel like they hit? Yeah, Trey McKitty's another guy that I think is a little underrated. I think he's going to be a Virgil Green kind of tight end, which people think that that's a bad thing, but I don't think it's a bad thing. You need a guy who's really going to do everything for you, who could block, but also go on a fly pattern and end up or a seam route and catch a pass and turn it into a quick 15-yard gain. I think that's what Trey McKitty is going to become for this team. But yeah, no, this is probably the best draft and I've been around for the whole Tom Telesco era so far. So I think this has been the best draft that he's had, even though last year, yes, he got Justin and he got Kenneth, but that's only 2 players. Here, he really did, as of right now, hit the nail on the head with pretty much every one of his picks. They all seem like they're going to be good players, good solid players who are leaders of their teams and are going to come into this team and have a good head on their shoulders. So I definitely think this is Tom Telesco's best draft.
I want to circle back around real quick with the coaching aspects. I know we talked ad nauseum already about
Brandon Cowboy-esque of you. You want to circle back?
Oh,
yeah.
We're going to be paying Dak the money.
Yeah, you don't have that $40 million yacht, Jake.
Yeah, no, I don't got that.
Unless you're hiding it in the backyard, because I'd love to get on it.
Yeah, it's just
get
on
line.
3 foot.
I saw it in Miami. I saw it in Miami last year. Oh crap, that thing is humongous. That's like that was like a penthouse on freaking on the ocean. Like probably even better. It looked amazing. And then I remember I asked one of his people, I'm like, hey, is he doing tours on there? She's like, real funny. I was like, okay, sorry. Like, I just wanted to see, like, hey, I'd pay $10 to
shoot your shot, dude.
Yeah, I'd pay $10 to get a tour of his yacht. Hell
there
yeah.
you go.
But I
Really?
want to take a picture where he was sitting during the draft. Just take a picture like this. Be like Jerry, like like something like that. But what did you want to circle back to?
Yeah, let me get back to that. We've already been talking about Brandon Staley's philosophy and obviously your perspective on it, Fernando. And from what you've been saying has echoed a lot from the players talking about it, just as far as playing more free, getting more of that freedom to do, as you said, put them in the best position to win. I want to talk a little bit more about the positional coaches. For Joe Lombardi, I feel like he's kind of gotten a mixed bag of perspectives just from outside Chargers fans. I know that we're very intrigued about what he's going to bring to this from what he did with Sean Payton and the Saints, but a lot of people always go back and they look at that 1 year in Detroit and try to talk down on. It's like, well, if there never was really a big offense, that he led, a good season that he had outside of his years with Sean Payton. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. And then I wanted to get into Darius Swinton, the special teams coach. But from what you've observed so far, what's the biggest difference that you've seen going from Shane Steichen to now Joe Lombardi?
Well, you talk about the freedom. I mean, I don't want to speak ill of Shane, but I think there was a lot of cover-ups last year with some of the mistakes that were made, like the Buffalo, the QB sneak on that first down with like 8 seconds left in the game. I think there was numerous mistakes made by Shane. I feel like he was still kind of getting the groove. I understand the question marks with Joe Lombardi because, dude, you say a year, but it was a year in like 4 games, and it was pretty bad. And he had Megatron, he had Matthew Stafford. The only problem is that I've always said this: having a player like Megatron is incredible, but you're not going to win Super Bowl titles with him because your quarterback is just. And Matthew Stafford did this. All he would do is just go,
chuck it.
Yeah, just chuck it up and hope Megatron came down with it. So I understand the frustration there, but yeah, you're right. The offensive line wasn't there. The running game wasn't there. There was a lot of question marks about the Detroit Lions roster, but then the problem is that they turned it around once Lombardi was gone. So I'm also with you. I think he's learned from it. Drew Brees was out there last week, and he told us, he's like, this system is going to be very good. And it's not just the New Orleans Saints system. And I feel like that's where people are getting a little confused. They're leaning heavily on their position coaches. Quarterbacks coach, Shane Day. There you go. Thank you. They're going to lean heavily on Shane Day. They're going to lean heavily on the positional coaches. I think like we've never seen before. I feel like that's the thing. They're saying they're going to run stuff from the Green Bay Packers offense, from the New Orleans Saints, from the San Francisco 49ers, and some of the things that he liked. My thing is, what they're bringing from San Francisco is the run game. Fans think that Justin's just going to throw 50 times a game, and that's not what it's going to be like. People are like, oh, Anthony's not here anymore. That means he's going to be able to run the ball. That's not what's going to happen. They're going to run the football, and they're going to try and use less of Herbert in a sense. But when they use Herbert, use him in a way where, I don't know if I'm saying this right, but use him in a way where he doesn't have to throw that many times in a game, get tired or any of that. They want to lean on being an offense that really goes 50-50 and is able to score on a long touchdown run. I don't know if I'm making sense, but that's what I mean. Like they want to be versatile, but at the same time, it's not going to be Justin just throwing the ball down the field. It's going to be running the football. San Francisco, that's why I think all 4 running backs are going to make this squad. All 4 of them bring something different. And you saw the way San Francisco rode that to the Super Bowl. They were riding different running backs, handing it off to different guys, using different guys. And the way they opened up the offensive line and the schemes that they used to open up the offensive line, I feel like that's what Shane Day is going to bring. I know he's the quarterbacks coach, but he knows what the roster is, or he knows what the scheme was, how to open up the run game, how to do different things like that. So Joe Lombardi's system will fit this team because they kind of have the similar players. So a guy like Keenan's going to do what Keenan does, but I think Keenan's going to be more inside now. I don't know how much outside he's going to play. Mike is going to be in the Michael Thomas role, according to Joe Lombardi, and Drew Brees told us that fits Mike well. I've always thought in the past that Mike Williams I like Mike Williams. I think Mike Williams is an underrated player. I think he's one of the clutchest receivers in the NFL. I think he's one of those guys that you could really count on at the end of the game to get you a big time catch. And some fans, for some reason, don't notice that, or it goes unscathed, maybe because they lose those games. but I still feel like it's not
Saints.
on Mike. Yeah, Saints, Mexico City, where he made that grab against the Chiefs at the end of the game, and then Phillip throws an interception. The game against Denver, where he catches it against his helmet, and they end up losing that game on a bogus Casey Hayward penalty at the end of the game. But I feel like that goes underrated. I think they need to use Mike, and I think Mike needs to get more catches this year. Mike last year showed me a lot. When Keenan was down, Mike was really the receiver that Justin counted on. I remember that play because people were like, oh, all Mike knows how to do is go long. I remember that play against the Jets where he cuts inside. Justin throws him a pass. He literally grabs both the receiver and the safety, slams him to the ground, and walks into the end zone. Like, I'm like, why aren't they doing more of those plays for Mike? And I remember I asked Shane last year, oh, we're going to try and emphasize him a little bit more. And I'm like, but you didn't. Like, you haven't. So, I mean, it was just like one of those things where you're like, okay. So I really think that they need to emphasize him more. I think Mike needs to play a bigger role. But when you ask me about Joe Lombardi, I get the questions. But the thing is, Justin can pick up any system. I think he really is going to have a lot more freedom in this system. I feel like the Chargers may trust him in the sense of, hey, you can change the play if you feel like you need to call out. Last year, that's what I heard from some players, that Herbert called out of a lot of plays. He would sometimes change the plays because he felt confident enough to make some changes at the line. So I feel like the Chargers are going to do that. And then another thing is, you guys know this, Brandon Staley was a former quarterback, so he understands offenses. It's not like Brandon doesn't know. It's not like Brandon's just gonna let Joe do everything on offense. Brandon's gonna have a little bit of his input into that offense because that's what a head coach does. He has a little bit of input in all three phases of the game, and so I'm sure Brandon's gonna put a game plan, or they're gonna put a game plan together to help the offense succeed. So I think when we talk about this offense, I think Brandon is going to have a little bit more say in this, and I feel like he's gonna be able to control a little bit more of what's going on. But I think Joe's grown. I think Joe has grown a little bit since his time in Detroit. He went back to New Orleans. He learned a little bit more. So I'm sure Joe seems like he felt like he's learned off of this. Drew Brees basically told us that he feels like Joe has grown from the last time he had an opportunity. So I really do think that this offense should be a lot better than it was last year, especially with the improved offensive line.
We're talking to Fernando Ramirez, covers the Chargers for Sports Illustrated, man of the people. Now, I have a question for you. Now,
I have an answer for you.
Ooh, I like this. Typically, I am the optimist. Jake is generally more pessimist. Brings me back down to earth.
Generally is a kind word to use there.
See, that's my optimism. So
I've always heard you as the optimist, really, and I'm more in the middle. So I'm sure I can answer this.
Okay, this will be good. So I think everyone is over the moon about Justin Herbert and how amazing he has been and how great he's going to be. Not that I'm wanting to temper expectations or I'm wanting to like pump the brakes on the hype train, but maybe the question
flip roles.
No, but the question is why should Chargers fans feel like they don't need to worry about him having like the sophomore slump or him having like the RG3 year where he's a great rookie and then just goes to the tank? Like, what makes him different?
Because he's Justin Herbert. I mean, the kid, I don't blow smoke up people's rear ends. Like, if I really do think that somebody's good, I can tell you, and this kid is something else. I mean, I really think the reason why I believe in this and in him is the one simple fact that this is his sixth offensive coordinator in 6 seasons. This is his fifth head coach in 6 seasons. He's learned every single time. His dad told me, you need to challenge him. The kid needs to feel like he's learning every single day and he will succeed. That's what Brandon Staley's doing with him. Another thing is, too, Brandon sat down with him, from what I understand, and they went through every single game that he played last year, every single snap he played, and Brandon explained to him what the opposing defense was doing. Last year, yes, he had an incredible season, but fans forget he did have a bad stretch. He played bad against the Patriots. He played bad against Buffalo, and he played bad against Miami. And granted, not everybody came to play those games. The offensive line was surely not helping, but Justin had bad games. They were doing the zero coverage where they would, and they disguised it. So they would look like they were all going to blitz. Justin would check out of something and they would drop back into coverage. And Justin was like, oh crap. Like, okay, maybe, like, I think he got confused a little bit by it, which it wasn't just him. There was also some other folks who got confused by it as well. And so I really do think that Justin is going to learn from all the mistakes from last year. And I think he's really going to grow this season. Again, I've told people, I was on Kirk Morrison's show a couple of days ago. I've been on other shows where I tell people, would I be surprised if Justin threw 55 touchdowns this year, broke the record, and was just had a laser for an arm and maybe the league MVP? No, I wouldn't be surprised. Would I be surprised if Justin had the same numbers that he had last year and still had a great season? No, I wouldn't be surprised. Would I be surprised if he regressed? Hell yes, I would be. Because I don't think Justin's going to regress. I think Justin's one of those guys that, and I understand that the whole Joe Lombardi, all this stuff, Gilbert's also on that train where he's kind of like, but what about this? What about that? I just think Justin is so good. He's such a good quarterback that I feel like he could overcome. I mean, he overcame some of the stuff last year with Shane Steichen and some of the mishaps on offense. He overcame that stuff and really balled out. And I mean, I would have understood, like, I don't think he balled out. Like, I understand the way RG3 balled out his year, but I think it's been said that RG3 really didn't know much of the offense. He was just going out there and playing. Justin understood the offense last year. Justin had some, I mean, dude, he went up against Tampa Bay, and I know it wasn't the Tampa Bay that ran to the Super Bowl and won it, but still, he went up against Tampa Bay and he threw up 3 touchdowns against them. Then a week later against New Orleans, who's another top defense in the NFL, lights him up for 4 touchdowns. You don't do that by accident.
I think, and Jake, I think, I don't know if you saw this, but he was on the Rich Eisen show, or Keenan Allen was on the Rich Eisen show, and they were talking about Justin Herbert, and they were saying how, like, yeah, and he wasn't saying it in a bad way, but he's like, dude, like, Justin Herbert didn't know what he was doing last year. Like, he's a rookie, like, he's just thrown out there and is just going off of instincts, but, I mean, he knew what he was doing in terms of him being prepared, but just, NFL experience is a whole different ballgame, and so it was just interesting to even hear folks like Keenan Allen kind of preach to how well they think Herbert's going to do moving forward.
Well, and the thing is there, I don't think he knew what he was doing the first 2 games, but I do think he knew what he was doing against Tampa Bay. I think that's really when it clicked for him, because there's no way you can go up against Carolina and really he played bad, but it was a second game. But then how the hell do you go down to Tampa Bay and you almost light them up and you almost beat them? Like, I think he had a real understanding of what he was doing. And then that throw to Tyron Johnson and that other throw to Jalen Guyton, even the one that Donald Parham, I don't think a quarterback who's just going off of instincts can make those throws. That is, he's prepared. He knows what the offense is running, and he sees the vision down the field. That was one of his knocks, his vision down the field. And his vision down the field last year was incredible. So I understand the whole instinct thing, but I'm going to have to say, I think by that point, he understood the offense. He understood what was going on. And I think he really took over that team, that Tampa Bay game. I think he really took that over. And then from the rest of the season on, he really did play incredible. But that Tampa Bay game to me is always going to be cemented in my head. And even the New Orleans game where he just took it over. And then that throw to Mike in New Orleans, the one day, that touch pass that he gets him that down the field to get him in field goal range and everything, like, that was just incredible. So I understand what Keenan means, but I think at one point, Justin really did understand it, and he was able to succeed.
And you go back to that Tampa Bay game. It's interesting just to hear your vote of confidence, Fernando, and what you've seen, and obviously, what you think that he's going to be. And if there is going to be a sophomore slump, are you going to be surprised? Yes. But then to watch what he did against Tampa Bay, and then to hear a quote from Bruce Arians earlier this year saying, hey, man, changing coordinators could be a really bad thing. We really just don't think that that's going to be that big of a hurdle for Justin Herbert to overcome.
I just think it was Bruce Arians trying to vouch a little bit for Anthony Lynn's staff, which, I mean,
I get it.
People can say whatever they want or whatever, but I mean, you did kind of need to, like, I understood why they made all the changes that they made. I understood why. Like, I don't know if he was trying to say like, oh, at least keep Pep Hamilton. You couldn't keep Shane Steichen. I mean, you really couldn't. So maybe he was saying, hey, why did you let Pep Hamilton go? Maybe he should have stayed at the quarterbacks coach. But hey, I mean, Shane Day is a good quarterbacks coach. I think he's really going to help Justin. And then obviously getting a guy like Chase Daniel to come in, I think that's going to help him. It's going to be like having a second offensive coordinator on here, especially if he makes the roster. But I really do think that I saw Bruce Arians quote, but I really think that you can literally like put me out there at offensive coordinator, and I could help Justin succeed. I mean, it's just the kid's just awesome. I think he has a good head on his shoulders, and he said. I asked him like, hey, these next 5 weeks, most guys will go to Cancun, they'll go to Cabo, they'll go travel and stuff. And I asked Justin what he was going to do. He's like, oh, I'm just going to be on my computer watching our film, but also as well watching the defense and their schemes. I'm like, oh, you watch both? And then he's like, yeah, I have to watch both. He's like, yeah, I watch both to see what they're doing, to see some of their disguises, to see what they're going to be throwing at me so that I know exactly what they're doing. I was like, oh, wow.
That's our quarterback.
It was pretty impressive to hear Justin and kind of some of the things that he was saying. You could tell he's grown a lot mature-wise. He got bigger in the offseason. He looked big to me. I mean,
bulked up.
I think he bulked up a little bit. And then obviously fans care about the hair. The hair is growing back. So I think fans are excited about that as well.
Kind of switching gears just a little bit here. We've had a few players on the show. We've had Drew Tranquil. We've had Chris Harris, Nazir Adderley. Pretty much everyone, when we ask, who they're most excited to see on the field, the answer is always Derwin James, which we don't need to go into that because every single person knows how important and how impactful Derwin James is and how excited we are to see him play. Other than Derwin James and Justin Herbert, because that's another easy one, who is a player or two that you are most excited to see this season specifically?
Well, I mentioned him already, but Mike Williams is one of those guys that I really am interested to see how he takes the next step forward. I wouldn't be surprised if Mike went 60 catches, 1,200 yards, and maybe 8 touchdowns, and really set himself up for a contract extension. I wouldn't be surprised if Mike went that crazy, but Mike is a guy on offense that I want to see what he's able to do in this offense. If he really is going to play the Michael Thomas role, that means he's going to get a lot of balls thrown his way. I think Keenan needs that. Keenan needs somebody to really step up and kind of help him because, yeah, Keenan makes 11 grabs, but you gotta kind of relax that body a little bit and kind of give somebody else some touches too. So I really do think that Mike is a guy that I see on the offense. On defense, man, I want to see what Joey's going to be all about. I'm really excited to see what Joey's going to be about. That's a cheater. So I'm cheating there. So I'll give you another one. But I just want to see if Joey really is going to drop back. I want to see if he gets an interception or something like that. Nick had one a couple of years, his rookie year. I think he didn't make it all the way into the end zone. I think he got stopped 3 or 4 yards before. So I want to see which Bosa brother scores a touchdown first. Oh, you know what? Nick might have already scored a touchdown on a fumble recovery. I can't remember, but I want to see if Joey can do that. But on defense, who am I excited to see? You know what? I want to see Michael Davis on this Chargers defense. Michael Davis is a guy that I didn't think he was going to get re-signed. I thought, and I might have said it on here, I can't remember, but Michael Davis was a guy that I thought would go into free agency and maybe go to the Raiders with Gus Bradley over there.
No, that was the other guy. That was Casey Hayward.
Oh, really? No. Yeah. My bad. Yeah. I thought you meant that was the other that Chris Harris had. But yeah. So Michael Davis is a guy that I think has grown a little bit, but I still have some question marks about him. But I feel like Brandon Staley could really help him grow. Brandon Staley loves saying his nickname Vato. So every time he does that, Gilbert and I turn to each other and we start laughing because we just think it's funny, like the way he says Vato. And so like next time when I hear him say "Orale Holmes," like I'm waiting for him to do that. But definitely I think Michael Davis is a guy to watch just because I want to see how much more he can grow. According to Brandon, and I asked Brandon Staley, why did you guys re-sign Michael Davis and not go after one of your own? Go get Troy Hill or go get some. And I know Troy Hill is more of a slot corner, but I thought maybe you'd go with somebody who could help him teach some of these other guys his system. But no, he decided to go. He decided to re-sign Michael Davis, and he said, "I don't feel like he's reached his full potential yet. I feel like we could help him reach his full potential." Which to me, I'm really interested to see what it is, because I've told you guys before. Sometimes he makes bad plays, bad decisions at crucial times, whether it's like yanking a guy down and then he gets called for holding or pass interference or stuff like that. So I'm really interested to see how Michael Davis takes it over this year. Then I want to see if they're really going to put Michael Davis on Tyreek Hill. That matchup to me is very interesting.
They should.
Last year they did it a couple of times, but it wasn't as consistently as I wanted to see. So this year I want to see if they do that. And by the way, Dan, obviously Derwin's going to be the most exciting guy like to watch. Dude, I'm still, and I can't remember who I told the other day this too, but that play against his rookie year, when it's Thursday Night Football, they're playing for their lives against the Chiefs on Thursday Night Football. I remember Patrick Mahomes this was the first touchdown to kind of get them going. Not the first touchdown of the second half, where it kind of in the fourth quarter, where it kind of got the ball rolling. Patrick Mahomes throws like not a screen, but a flat route. So Travis Kelce was out in the flat. He throws it to him. I'm like, oh shit, this is gonna be an easy first down. Derwin comes from out of nowhere, grabs him, picks him up, and then drops him. And I'm like, oh damn, okay. And then he did that on Sunday Night Football. He does that against James Conner, and James Conner is a big boy,
big dude.
So I'm like, dude, this guy just like literally picks guys up and drops them. And I think Derwin is so hungry that really, like, he's gonna come out flying against Washington. No, not even Washington, against the Rams. So that's going to be an exciting one to watch when you watch Derwin. I don't even want
to play against the Rams.
You know what? And that's kind of what I want to ask Brandon. Are you going to let him play against these guys, or are you just going to let him like kind of sit like the preseason? Because I mean, Derwin's Derwin. Derwin knows.
Yeah,
but I mean, you know what? But you have to get the rust off. Like, the way this is going to play out now is the first game is going to be like the first and the second game of the preseason. The second one's going to be like the third game, where they kind of let the guys go till halftime. And the third game is going to be like the fourth game, so nobody plays. So, man, this is going to get really interesting really fast. But I do want to watch Derwin play. And it's funny because Gilbert tells me that he feels like he's been cheated. And I'm like, why? He's like, I have not watched. He's like, I watched Derwin because Gilbert got hired the Sunday or the week before that Sunday night matchup against the Steelers. So he's only watched 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games of Derwin James. So no, 7, then 5 the back end of the 2019 season. So he's only watched about 12. Oh, the only games that Joey Bosa and Derwin James have played together, Gilbert has been here for all those. So he feels cheated. So he really wants to watch Derwin play.
I want to take that conversation one step further, because obviously we're in training camp purgatory right now. We don't have anything really ramping up until the end of this month. And we know that from OTAs...
Uncle Fernando needs us to relax. He's namaste. Namaste.
Bring it down a little bit, man. Yes, I know what you mean. But we know that not everybody obviously hasn't been going full speed OTAs, but there's obviously a lot of intrigue with, outside of the big name players of this team. I want you to give me 2 position groups. I want you to give me one for offense and one for defense. That's going to have a really healthy competition that we should be watching when training camp starts. Give me one for offense and one for defense.
I want to say the running backs, but to me, it's literally Austin Eckler, and then the mess between the 3: Larry Roundtree, Joshua Kelly, Justin Jackson. And then if I go receiver, it's kind of cheap because, I mean, obviously there's so many. No, you know what? Yeah, I have to go receivers. I mean, that one, like, Gilbert and I were going through that the other day, and we're like, okay, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Josh Palmer. And then he's like, why are you putting Josh Palmer third? I'm like, shut up. Josh Palmer. I'm like, then you get into Tyron Johnson, Jalen Guyton, then KJ Hill, then Joe Reed, and then you're like, oh crap, like that's a lot of receivers on this team. So that's really where I think it's going to be interesting, and it's going to be a healthy competition. I think they're going to have a lot of competition at that receiving group. I don't know who's going to come out of it, and it's like everybody's asking like, oh, who's going to come out of all this? And I'm like, I don't know. Like I see a case for everybody, but like I like Joe Reed. I thought Joe Reed was going to bring a lot of energy last year. he scores against the Jets, and then or the Jacksonville Jaguars, and then he never sees the ball again the rest of the season, unless it was like on special teams. And I'm kind of like, wow, okay, I just got gypped. Like, I should have been able to see more of this, but obviously we didn't. So I think receiving group is going to be one to take a look at. Defense. Damn. Defensive line. I'm really interested to see what the defensive line is going to be like. Justin Jones has been the starter, but Linval Joseph, to me last year, I think he was the most underrated Charger player. I just think every single time I saw a play, like if a running back took off running, I remember watching other defensive linemen in years past that would just be like, oh, okay, he left. Linval Joseph was running after him and still trying to make the play. So I think Linval is one of those guys that really is going to make a name for himself. Braden Fayoko, I think, is going to maybe step up this year, maybe be one of those guys that fights really hard for that roster. Christian Covington is another guy that I really look at, and I'm like, oh, wow, he could make the roster. But to me, defensive linemen is where they're most vulnerable in a sense. Maybe that's just me being a pessimist, but I think they need more. I think they need more at defensive line just because they're going to face a lot of really good running backs this year. And that's really where you're kind of like, oh, like you're facing a lot of, like even at the beginning of the season, they're facing a lot of the top backs in the NFL. And it's kind of like, do you have the capacity to stop these guys? Especially because I'm telling you right now, Washington is going to run the ball a lot with Gibson. I think I know Fitzpatrick is there, Fitzmagic, but I know that I think they're going to try and run the ball and kind of settle everything. Sorry. So I think they're gonna. I think it's gonna be interesting to see kind of the way they run things, but definitely I think the defensive line is a roster. It's kind of one of those position battles you're gonna need to take a look at because it's going to be a battle to see who makes that roster. Because before, I mean, you knew it was going to be Justin Jones no matter what. And now it's kind of like, well, it's a new coaching staff. What if they like so-and-so or they like this guy? So, but Jake, don't worry. Aaron Donald's not walking through that door. So don't get that excited.
Now, I'm not that excited. Dude.
I'd love to see Aaron Donald and Joey Bosa on the same.
Can you imagine?
Offensive line.
That wouldn't even be fair.
Yeah,
we're wrapping things up with Fernando Ramirez from Sports Illustrated. We have one more question for you, Fernando. And everyone was hyped about the Rashawn Slater and Asante Samuel Jr. picks in this draft. Which of those two need to play best in order for this team to be successful?
Rashawn Slater. Rashawn Slater needs to be that cement wall that everybody thinks he's going to be. They need him to be that cornerstone left tackle that you're going to have for years. The Chargers haven't had that since Marcus McNeil. I remember how Marcus was during his great times down here in San Diego. Marcus literally would not let anybody get past him. He was literally 6'9", humongous. He would not let anybody get past him. So I think Rashawn Slater needs to be that Pro Bowl left tackle that they need. They haven't had it. They had Jared Geither. Remember him? They pay him. Do you remember that? They pay him. He's now on the mend for years to come. Like he literally never played. They've had other makeshift. Mike Harris Jr. God, who was their left tackle during the 2013? It was DJ Fluker. It was Chris.
King Dunlap. You had King
Dunlap.
Yeah,
King Dunlap. I still remember one time I covered an event where they played dodgeball, and it was King Dunlap, Keenan Allen. Melvin Ingram. I can't remember the rest of the players. Dude, they were playing the cops, like the San Diego PD. Somebody throws one at King Dunlap's face. He gets so pissed. He grabs the ball, throws it at the cop, and breaks the cop's like nose. And I was like, oh my God. But like, I tell you, like that thing was like zooming. I was like, oh crap. And so like from then on, like King's like, you like that? And I just started like, to me, I was like, I'm never messing with you when you have when you have a dodgeball in your hand. He started laughing. And obviously the Chargers players won. Like they were knocking people out. Like they played a local DJ radio station. Like they knocked them. Like the Chargers didn't eliminate anybody. Like They didn't get eliminated. They didn't eliminate one single player. I was like, dude, like these guys are crazy. They ended up winning the trophy and everything, but it was hilarious. But yeah, King Dunlap. They've had then Russell Okung. So Russell Okung was serviceable, but you need that guy that's just going to be there for the next 10 years. I think Rashawn is going to end up being the better tackle out of this draft. I think Rashawn has the tools to do it. Another thing, too, he has the leadership on his team. He has Corey Linsley. He has Brian Bulaga. I really think those guys are really going to step up and help him and help with his development. So I really do think that Rashawn Slater needs to become that left tackle this year, especially right off the gate. You're playing Chase Young. Like, you're going to need to be that guy right off the bat because you don't want Chase Young anywhere near your quarterback. You don't want Von Miller. You don't want any of these guys near your quarterback. So to me, that's an easy question. Even when you were asking, I'm like, Rashawn Slater, like, that's it. Like, that guy needs to be what he was built to be because his production means how this offense is going to go in a sense. So I really do think it rests on Rashawn Slater more than it does and not saying that Asante doesn't need to be good this year. He does, but they're going to count a lot more on Rashawn on the offensive line.
Okay, then I'll make it hard. Okay, rapid fire real quick. 5 seconds. You don't get much time to answer this because you're going to probably have to go back and forth. Rashawn Slater, Justin Herbert. Who needs to play better?
Rashawn Slater, because if Rashawn Slater plays well, that means Justin Herbert's going to play better. So as long as Rashawn Slater does his job, Justin Herbert should be able to do his. So boom.
Dang.
Hang on. Since that ended up being so easy, okay. Who's got the better corn dogs? Wiener Schnitzel or hot dog on a stick?
Hot dog on a stick.
Yup.
Hot dog on a stick.
I'm looking for Fernando to put on one of those hats and start making us some lemonade. That'd be awesome.
No, hell no. No. You know what's funny? I applied there in high school and they told me no. And I'm like, why? They're like, look at your competition. It was like 3 beautiful women sitting right there. And I was like, yeah. I was like, I get it. Like, yeah. I'm like, nobody wants to see anybody shake. They don't want these milkshakes to shake. They're not looking for these milkshakes to shake.
You're beautiful too, Fernando. You are beautiful too.
I appreciate that. I'd like to think so. I mean, I'm like, if you love Ham Porter from The Sandlot, that's the kind of guy I am. Like, walking around, I'm like, ooh, sexy. And then he's like waving at them and he's like cannonball, and he throws himself in the pool. That's the kind of guy I am. So it's all good. Like, if you like Ham Porter, come on down. So but yeah, no, definitely hot dog on a stick is, and then it's like especially like one time I remember I got a corn dog from Wiener Schnitzel like 11 o'clock at night and it tasted like plastic and I'm like, crap. So the next day I had to go to hot dog on a stick and it tasted fresh. It tasted delicious. So I was like, okay, there you go. But yeah, corn dogs, Jackie. Corn dogs for all these people. I love that scene. Oh my God. You know, it's funny. One of my coworkers from NBC, he lived in Jacksonville at the time. That's where they were recording that scene. And he was able to be an extra in the bear scene. So he said he was there and he's like, run for your lives. And he's like, and he gets up and he like takes off running and everything. I was like, what was that like? He's like, dude, it was the coolest thing in the world. He's like, to hear Will Ferrell. And he's like, then one of the producers yells at Will because he grabs the microphone. Like, he wasn't supposed to grab the microphone while he's on the floor. He's like, your refund will be escaping here with your life. He said that he did that off, like it was impromptu. And I was like, dude, that is so awesome. But priceless. I don't know if have you seen 4 Christmases?
Yes, I have.
Okay. So you know that Reese Witherspoon never wants to work with Vince Vaughn again because most of Vince Vaughn is impromptu. The part where they're at the church and he's like, woman, give me that baby and I, Joseph, shall swaddle this baby. Like, that was all impromptu. That's not the way it was supposed to go. And they said that Reese Witherspoon was so pissed at the way Vince Vaughn did. But I'm like, dude, that's what makes it good. The greatest part ever. Like, he swaddles the baby and he's like, forgive her, son, for she knows not what she's done. And then he gets up and he goes like that. But the funniest part is when he walks up and he's like, I need to get into character. And he's like, I'm going to blow the roof off this bitch. And then he's like, he gets all serious and he gets all into it. I'm like, yes, Vince Vaughn, you're amazing. By the way, Wedding Crashers 2 has begun production.
Yes, sir.
When did this news break?
A couple of weeks ago. The full cast is coming back too. All 4 of them. So I'm like, dude, like, this is going to be epic. At the end of the movie, I loved it how Owen Wilson goes, the Shirigamis are getting married. That means great sushi. And then what's her name is like, she's like, we're traveling singers.
Yes.
Who got invited to this wedding and then like going to that fake wedding. So I'm excited. I'm excited for all these movies coming out tomorrow. Like I said, or Friday, I get to go watch Fast and Furious 9. I'm hyped.
Did you see In the Heights? Did you see In the Heights?
No, I did not. What's that?
Oh,
is it that? Is it a musical?
It's based off of Lin-Manuel Miranda's. Oh, dude, do yourself a favor. Trust me. Sure, do yourself a favor. Watch on HBO Max.
Thought I watched Coco. Everyone thought I watched Coco because I'm Mexican. I'm like, no, I haven't watched Coco. Everybody's like, you haven't watched Coco? I'm like, no, just because I'm freaking Mexican doesn't mean I watch Coco. I
watched In the Heights and it was fantastic. And I have heard so many people who don't like musicals at all love it.
I'll take your word for it. I don't know if I'm going to watch a music. I don't know why. If people aren't like if it's not like American Pie, I'm not into it. Like there needs to be some crazy ass crap happening. I'm going to spend $10 to go watch Fast and Furious though.
Okay, go find a drive-in. You can do a double feature. You can watch both.
Who would be playing Fast and the Furious and then In the Heights right after?
Imagine my adrenaline rush from Fast and Furious, and then wham, it comes down for In the Heights.
You'd be surprised, Fernando. You'd be surprised.
I watch Fast and Furious, and then I want to go out and buy like a muscle car and go like drive the crap out of it, but then I forget. I live in California, and like that's frowned upon, so I could probably get arrested for driving the way they do in those
Tesla. You'll get a Tesla.
Yeah, I imagine you're driving,
Prius.
a muscle car down the street, and then you just saw a double feature of Fast and the Furious 9 and In the Heights, and you're driving this great muscle car down the street, and then all of a sudden you just decide to break out into song.
Dude, I can't do it. While driving. No, I couldn't do it. I mean, I don't know. I'm
missing out.
Jake wants to really
hear me.
Dan really wants to have my adrenaline rush go from 1,000 to down to -5. I don't know if I could do that, but I'll.
Chargers Unleashed listeners have seen this. Back me up and tell Fernando that he is missing out. I don't know what's going to happen first. Fernando watching In the Heights or Jake watching Moulin Rouge. I'm putting money on Fernando because
Moulin Rouge.
Don't even. We're not. We'll save that for a different discussion. Jake, is there anything else we need to ask our friend?
By the way, the last time somebody did that, Gilbert got crapped on because he's like there was a thing that said, I'm Mexican, but I don't like a certain thing. I said, I'm Mexican, but I don't drink alcohol. And Gilbert thought fans were going to crap on me for that one. And they ended up crapping on him because he doesn't like avocados. So,
That's worse.
So Dan, you might get crapped on. So I wouldn't try and do that because some people might tell you In the Heights wasn't that good. And they'll be like, no, Fernando's right. So, hey, but Jake, you got anything else left from the Cowboy? Are you going to circle around something else and ask me a question?
Circle back on this, Jake.
I was just going to say, you have Gilbert, who's only on Harry Potter 3. I have to live with Dan Wolkenstein only being on Captain America and the Winter Soldier, who hasn't even
watched.
That's exactly my point.
I watched up to that.
Dude, that's literally the third movie in the whole.
Why don't we ask Jake why I haven't watched more?
You don't have Disney Plus.
That's not the excuse.
You don't have Disney Plus, do you, Dan?
For that. And you even told me this afternoon that technically you haven't even finished Captain America Winter Soldier. You've only watched the first hour.
One of the most underrated films is Captain America Winter Soldier. That one is incredible.
And we need to get Fernando in this then. Fernando, you watch In the Heights. I will watch the rest of Phase 2.
So you
have to watch one movie. I have to watch
I'm
4.
gifting you the Marvel series, which is incredible, full of action, and you want to gift me musicals?
Yes, sure.
I was the kid.
I'm gonna make you put up with a 2-hour musical that you'll be so excited.
So I graduated from college, and my parents and us, my family, we went to London for just on vacation and stuff for a graduation surprise or whatever. And we're watching Aladdin the musical, and my brother's like, "Yeah, I'm enjoying Aladdin," and all I hear is, I was not the hell out. I was out. You can't. That's why nobody takes me to musicals. I knock out. To me, a musical is, hey, welcome to a 2-hour sleep fest. So literally, I'm there for 2 hours, and I follow. It doesn't matter what kind of musical it is. At Disneyland, Frozen. I fell asleep during Frozen. Like I was knocked out. Like literally KO'd watching Frozen. Like
there is no other men I would rather build a snowman with than Jake and Fernando.
No, God. But you know what's funny about that?
Get weird, dude. Way to make it weird.
Yeah, for real. Thank God we're not in a locker room. But honestly, I might like everybody hates going to musicals with me because I will fall. Like there hasn't been one musical I've made it through. Like West Side. Oh no. There's one, King Kong in New York. I went to a Broadway show. I watched King Kong. King Kong was freaking awesome. They had a big ass ape come down and like they're making him run and do all this stuff. Like that was badass. That one I did not fall. No. I didn't fall asleep through it. So there you go. That's the only musical I've never fallen asleep through. But everything else, Wicked and all that, I've fallen asleep through all that stuff.
All right.
I'm terrible.
Fine.
Terrible.
Fernando, do you want to take us home? Do you want to take us home or do you want Jake to take us home?
I think Jake should circle back and take us home. Unless you have something else for me, Jake. Do you have any other questions? Any other concerns?
No, sir. I'm good. All I know now is that's not going away anytime soon.
The way you guys schedule your friends, I might not be back until the season's over. So,
that's a burn. That's a burn.
Anyways, well, Fernando, it's been a long time coming, sir, but we're very happy to have you back on the show.
Thank you guys for having me back.
Absolutely, man. And it's actually, it's a nice pleasure. Just think about the little change just a couple months can make, because before it was just a friend of the show. Now it's friend of the show and colleague of the LA Football Network, and we love it. So thank you again for joining us. Fernando, where can everybody find you on social media?
Everyone can circle back on Twitter and go and find me on @RealF Ramirez and on Instagram at the same one. And if you want to circle back to si.com/Chargers, you'll find my articles. I've been a little lazy this week, but I'll definitely be throwing some more stuff out there and bringing that fire coming soon, just because I know Charger fans want to know more about this coaching staff, and I'm going to bring some of that stuff coming up soon. We got to talk to some of the assistant coaches and everything. So I definitely will be doing some of that stuff coming up. But again, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's always fun. I love talking corn dogs because of that. But again, guys, I appreciate you guys having me on, and it's always fun and it's always interesting when the three of us get together.
Yeah, now we're talking about dudes building snowmans together. It's just always something.
Okay, you just had to bring up another weird thing, didn't you, Jake? You should have just.
That one's not going to go away, dude. That was just like
snowman melt.
I should have done that. Yeah, I should have done that, but I didn't. But obviously, if you're still listening after all this crap, you can follow us on Instagram and on Twitter at @LAC_Unleashed, and we'll circle back around with you next week on Chargers Unleashed. Hope you guys are enjoying the show. Before we go any further, I just want to remind you all that today's show is being sponsored by Brewery X. I have said it ad nauseum. Dan and I have tasted their multitude of beers. My personal favorite, Slap and Tickle. If you haven't tried it, you got to go and try it. They have a multitude of beer and seltzer selections. Brewery X in Anaheim. If you are in the vicinity, even if you're not, even if you're down in San Diego, it's worth the trip. Trust me when I say this. Brewery X, fantastic beer selections. If you're a seltzer person, they got you covered there too. Brewery X in Anaheim, go check them out. They are a fantastic choice for a refreshment.
The Los Angeles Chargers select Rashawn Slater,
Asante Samuel Jr.
Stop! Oh, I'm strapping y'all boys. That's gonna get me.
Intercepted. Picked off by Michael Davis.
Explosiveness from Eckler. There's Murphy. Boy, he blew that up, didn't he? It is picked off. Nasir Adderley. 50-50 ball is 100%. Mike Williams. Ochena Nwosu. And that will end it. Time to